We're going to talk about the test real quick.
Okay, we just took it last time. I asked a question.
All right, let's talk about the test real quick. I'm going to put up two figures here.
Okay.
All right, what do you think these figures represent?
94 is the highest and 61 is the lowest.
Good guess. What else?
Oh, what? 94 is the average of the class.
It's the average for one portion of the class.
61% of us passed and 94% of us failed.
Good guess.
Don't even.
All right. 61% is the average for those who didn't turn in a review sheet. And this is specific to this class. 94% is the average of those who decided to turn in a review sheet. So what does this tell you guys?
We're 6% of the review.
You do the review sheet, you're going to see a better score on your test. It's plain and simple. So next test, I encourage you, turn in a review sheet. All right, today we're going to take some guided notes. We're going to talk about our next unit, which is the atomic bomb. Hey, where's your brother today?
He's at a doctor's
All right, we're going to talk about the creation of the atomic bomb specifically, and we'll have a 3-station activity today. And so to start off, as we've talked about before at the end of our test, the unit that we're doing today and for the next 3 days is going to be on the atomic bomb. We're going to talk today about the creation of the atomic bomb. What led to us choosing to develop an atomic bomb, and what were the steps that we took in order for that to occur. Day 2, we're going to talk about the decision. Why did we choose to go ahead and decide to drop the atomic bomb on Japan? And we're actually going to go to the Situation Room, which will be the library, and one of you will have to be President Truman, and one of you will have to decide whether or not we drop the atomic bomb on Japan. And then day 3, we're going to talk about the effects of the atomic bomb. Not only the short-term effects dealing with, obviously, the devastation that it occurred, but also the long-term effects. And guys, it's stuff that we have to deal with today. You know, you look in the news, we're dealing with nuclear weapons on a daily basis, and it's important to understand that not only did that affect what happened at Hiroshima and Nagasaki in the 1940s, but it affects, when we talk about the Cold War, nuclear weapons will be a huge portion of that, as well as, I mean, even Iraq in the 2000s, when we talk about weapons of mass destruction, these are things that are haunting us, and not only haunting us, but they're just effects that we have to deal with on a daily basis in today's world. So this is a unit overview, day 1, day 2, and day 3. As I mentioned today, we are going to focus on specifically the creation of the atomic bomb and what steps led to that creation. And our essential question today, as I mentioned, what led to the development of the atomic bomb? Now, generally speaking, what steps have to occur for a piece of technology, any technology, to be developed? What are some things that have to happen?
materials required.
Okay, materials, good. Alright, what else? Funding, money. Okay, what else?
Workers.
Alright, workers. And not only just workers, but what kind of workers? Scientists, good. People with that knowledge base that have the ability to develop this technology. What else?
The accuracy of what they're making.
Okay, testing, the accuracy, good. Alright, what else? There's one more I want you to get.
Military.
Say that again.
Military.
Okay, military. You need protection, security. Do we need specific areas that we're going to look at that technology?
We get testing facilities.
Facilities, yep, facilities. All right, all these things, guys and girls, are aspects that lead to the development of technology. And we're going to look at these aspects today, specifically looking at the atomic bomb. We're going to look at materials. We're going to look at whether or not we should begin development on a nuclear weapon. We'll talk about money there. We'll look at some specific individuals, some scientists that helped develop or helped create an innovation that led to nuclear weapons. We'll talk about testing, and then we'll also talk about the relationship between scientists and the military as well as some facilities. We'll look at two specific places today. One will be where the atomic bomb was eventually put together, and the other is where a large part of the development occurred. And so this kind of takes us to the first slide today, which is creating the atomic bomb. Now I want to make sure in our mental timeline we've talked about the war in Europe. We went from beginning to end there. We've talked about the war in the Pacific from beginning to end. I want you to think in your mental timeline, we're going past Pearl Harbor all the way back to the rise of Hitler in Nazi Germany. Now, as Hitler was coming to power in 1933, not only was he promoting German nationalism, what else was he doing to a certain group of people? Discriminating, okay. The Jews specifically. Does anyone remember the Nuremberg laws from world history? You do? Does anybody remember anything specific about the Nuremberg laws?
The Jews couldn't work for or their books, whatever books that Jews wrote had to be taken out of the library and everything. Like all the culture had to be stripped from the town and stuff.
Okay, good, John. The culture had to be stripped. These laws, basically, it was used to oppress the Jewish population in Germany. They couldn't marry someone of German descent. They talked about sexual relations. They weren't allowed to employ a Jewish person. And specifically relating to scientists, Jews weren't allowed to have positions of civil service. Now, does anybody know what a civil service position is? Okay, yeah, exactly, Adam. Working for the government, working for the state. A large portion of these scientists, or basically most scientists, were employed at state universities where they would develop research and further along science. And so once these Nuremberg laws were in place, these Jewish scientists, they were out of a job. They were looking for employment. And so we see a large exodus of Jewish scientists leaving Germany and coming to the United States. You probably remember this guy, pretty famous, Albert Einstein, was a German immigrant. Leo Szilard is somebody that's going to be important that we'll talk about today that is also a German immigrant. And then Enrico Fermi has kind of a different story. He is from Italy. Now, what is going on during this time in the 1930s with Italy? Yeah, exactly. Mussolini, the rise in fascism. Enrico Fermi is going to say, hey, I'm getting out of Italy. He is going to leave and come to the United States as well. All three of these individuals left because they were being oppressed in some way or another. And they're going to find that they come to the United States, they're going to be able to call that place home, while also bringing their ideas and their scientific research to the United States. And that's going to be very important with what we'll be talking about today. Okay. A significant development occurs in 1938. Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann in 1938 successfully demonstrate a process called nuclear fission, and specifically nuclear fission of the uranium atom. Now, does anybody understand what this means? Okay. Okay, exactly. This picture here, you have a neutron. A neutron hits a target nucleus, and like Adam said, it splits the atom, and so you have two products, which are called fission products. Along with this, you have two neutrons that are created from the initial contact. And so nuclear fission is when a nucleus splits into several smaller fragments, and this occurs when a neutron hits that target nucleus. Now when you try to remember this, think in terms of you're hitting a target nucleus. We talk about nuclear weapons, or it hits the target nucleus of a specific atom, the uranium atom. We're talking about nuclear weapons and eventually the atomic bomb. Do you see the correlation there? That's why it was called this. And to better demonstrate this image, here's a quick video.
Szilard calculated that if you hit an atom with a neutron, as the atom divided, it would release not just energy, but 2 or 3 more neutrons. And those neutrons might then be free to break apart further atoms. And every time that happened, a tiny bit of mass could be converted into a vast amount of energy. Energy that at every step in the chain would multiply. It was a chain reaction.
So typically you would end up with 2 extra neutrons coming out. So those 2 extra neutrons can then induce another fission process and produce 2 more neutrons. So you have 4 neutrons. That would then go to 8, 16, 32. You have this multiplicative chain reaction process, and the potential for that was immediately seen because each of these processes produces a large amount of energy.
All right, as you can see, nuclear fission, remember, neutron hitting a target nucleus, it's going to split that nucleus and develop 2 fission products. And the important thing to understand is this is the first step in the creation of a nuclear weapon or an atomic bomb. In the beginning of that clip, it was probably hard to hear. The narrator said Szilard calculated. That guy that we were talking about, Leo Szilard, he is going to be the gentleman that develops this in theory in the United States. Now, as you can see, he isn't the one that successfully demonstrates this. And so he is working in the same line as these 2 gentlemen, Otto Hahn and Fritz Strassmann. The difference is they're still in Germany. And so it's important to understand that when they come to the United States, they understand that the scientists and the military are working together, and that, hey, this might be a problem. They've created the first step in potentially something that could be as devastating as the world has ever seen. Emily, you ready? All right. The second thing that occurs here, Szilard. He goes to his friend Einstein. He understands that the Germans have been able to demonstrate nuclear fission, and he's worried. He knows what's going on in Germany. He knows the power that Hitler could potentially have and the devastating effects it might have on his home country, as well as other countries that are against, or allied countries that are against Germany. And so he tells Einstein, hey, throw your weight around, talk to the president, talk to FDR, tell him of this, tell him the importance of this, tell him that it might be used to develop a new powerful bomb, and urge him to start developing some experimental work in the United States. And so what I'm going to do is I want you to put yourself in the shoes of FDR. I am going to read a portion of this letter, and I want you to think about, in your mind, think about what you would do with this information. This new phenomenon, nuclear fission, would also lead to the construction of bombs, and it is conceivable, though much less certain, that extremely powerful bombs of a new type may thus be constructed. A single bomb of this type, carried by boat and exploded in a port, might very well destroy the whole port together, with some of the surrounding territory as well. I understand that Germany has actually stopped the sale of uranium from the Czechoslovakian mines, which she has taken over. So if you remember back to when Hitler was starting to expand, he takes over Czechoslovakia, and in that area, they have a large number of mines that have uranium in it, which we talked about was the element that they broke apart through nuclear fission that had all that power. And so Einstein is saying, hey, President Roosevelt, listen, we need to start and speed up experimental work now. Now, FDR also understands that, this is 1938, 1939. We are just getting back on our feet from the Great Depression. He's wondering, do we have the money? Do we have the resources? Hitler is so far away in Europe, across the pond in the Atlantic. Do we really need to begin development now? We're isolated. We don't want any part with Europe's mess. And so what I want you to do here is I'm going to give you a minute to think about it. Think about what you would do. Then after that, we're going to have 2 minutes of pair sharing here. And then you're going to write down specifically what you would do, and then we're going to report out here. So you have 1 minute to think about it. Think about what you would do if you were FDR and you were given this information. Alright, now I want you to pair up with somebody close to you and discuss what you're thinking about, what you would do if you were Franklin Roosevelt. And I want to hear active discussion, guys. Hey, girls. I'll talk to John. What do you think? Down the road, Germany is not over it now. Just think about when you saw the devastation in Hiroshima, so you know the Jewish population. Looks like everybody's getting done here. Let's go ahead and write down your opinion. Write down what you think you would do. Give you a little more time. Yeah, just get out a piece of paper. Or you can write it on the back. The back of your guided notes would be great. got here real quick? John, what do you say?
Say yes, because FDR has information coming from immigrants that knows what's going on in Germany, so it's better to be safe than sorry.
All right. John says it's better be safe than sorry. The scientists obviously have good information that they're giving us. Let's hear another group.
If I was FDR, if we were FDR, we'd build the bomb up quickly and efficiently and get it ready to go, and then build up our military so we're prepared for anything because we don't know what they're going to do.
Okay. Super person. Super FDR. All right. Your group here.
Oh, I would be like looking at it like a
Hey,
shiny.
hey. Let's listen up here.
I wouldn't be looking at it like a shiny new toy. I look at, or I try to figure out the long-term and short-term effects of it, and how much of the land it would destroy. and stuff like
Okay. So she's saying, look at the effects and potentially the consequences if we were to detonate something of that nature. And what about Adam?
I would have started production on the atomic bomb like immediately because I wouldn't want to have that kind of power because he'd just completely misuse it.
Exactly. You know, who knows what could happen if it's in the hands of Hitler and we don't have anything to go against that. Good. And you were Zach. Is that right? Okay. Emily? Christina? I'm assuming.
I said I would make one fast before Hitler got a hold of it and like explode everything, every place he gets money.
Okay. Start production real quick. That's kind of the general consensus of this group. All right. Fine. Keep us.
Okay. Well, no, it's just like we would actually talk through it and decide if it's right. Should we actually do this, or is it something that we need to actually do?
Okay. Good. Good. Exactly. Pequas and Monty say, hey, we need to really sit down and think about this. Is this really something that we need to do right now? And that's important. What FDR actually does is he kind of does a collection or a consensus of what we've all talked about. He says, hey, I feel like this is very important, but we need to start production, but we need to begin slowly. We don't need to just go in a race right now. We're still isolated. We're still away from Europe. We don't necessarily have the funding right now. And so we need to halt development, or we need to begin development, but go at a slow pace. This creates the Manhattan Project. Now, who's heard about the Manhattan Project? Okay, it's kind of a familiar term. It is a government research and development program that focused on creating possibly a nuclear weapon. Now, like I mentioned, we're going to start experimental work slowly. This is the case until two significant things impact the Manhattan Project. The first is the attack on Pearl Harbor. Once we're attacked and once we're put into the war, we are officially a member of World War II. That changes our entire mindset. We go from a time of peace to now a time of war. And even though we kind of looked at Hitler as our enemy before the war, he is now officially our enemy. And so we say, hey, we need to begin production right now. We need to start. The second thing that impacts the Manhattan Project and the development is our man Fermi, who was the Italian immigrant. He successfully creates a chain reaction of nuclear fission. So in that video you saw that neutron hit the nucleus and it splits. This chain reaction is when that occurs and it splits and you have neutrons hitting atoms and things just begin to multiply. And that's what creates the atomic blast, is the chain reaction of these fissions. And so this is the second step in creating the atomic bomb. So while the Germany had the upper hand initially on successfully demonstrating nuclear fission, we get ahead of the game and we say, hey, we can do this on a chain reaction. So we take one more step ahead of Germany, excuse me, in this case. And from here on out, we are leading the development of the atomic bomb within the context of the world, and our development spreads nationwide. All right, as you can see here, these are all different sites that worked on the atomic bomb. And it stretches from coast to coast. As you can see, you have Chicago, Dayton, St. Louis, Ames. Ames was a uranium plant. Oak Ridge is something we're going to look at in depth today, as well as Los Alamos. And so to give you an idea, the Manhattan Project isn't just one specific remote location. There are locations all across the United States. Now, a large portion of these are going to be at universities where they're going to develop they're going to use scientific research and development, but others are going to be actually portions of land that are government-owned portions of land that they will help create the atomic bomb. This one here, Oak Ridge, Tennessee. Oak Ridge, Tennessee, in the 1940s, Oak Ridge, Tennessee wasn't even on a map of Tennessee. And it housed over 73,000 military and scientific personnel. So you have a place in the United States that isn't even on the map of Tennessee that's home to over 73,000 individuals. And they're going to work, and it's going to be a top secret, what they're working on, and it's going to be completely secured. You have to have clearance to get in and out of this town, but it's going to be one of these secret towns that, you know, the general citizen has no idea about, and it is going to help us in the development of the atomic bomb. And specifically here, they're going to work on enriching the uranium. Here in Los Alamos in your activity, we're going to look at actually putting the pieces together and eventually testing the atomic bomb here in Alamogordo.